Do we like Murakami? Do we think that Murakami is a good writer? I got into reading a few years ago, seriously, and I picked up, I think it was Kafka on the Shore was my first one. And I really liked it. I'd never read anything like it. Call it magic realism, call it surrealism, whatever you want to call it, where abstraction meets realism or reality, plots intermingle, things are kind of related to another, and it's up for you to figure out how, or just vibe how. I really like that. A lot of my job is spent analyzing things and being very super logical and finding the causation between things and the correlations and the logic. And something like Murakami, it sort of opens my emotions up to understanding things rather than my brain. So he'll do various plot points that are like paralleled. He won't answer questions. He'll let things just happen, right? Like in Kafka on the Shore, he just lets things happen, doesn't explain it. And at the time, I thought that was unreal. And I still think that's unreal. I still think some of Murakami's books are some of the most interesting and intuitive things I've ever read. I used to get goosebumps. I used to sit there and sort of go, oh, that's serendipitous. But now I've read 17 of his books, and I don't know if this undermines what he did in Kafka in the Shore and Wind Up Bird Chronicle, but he does the same plot over and over. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't always. Hard-Boiled Wonderland, After Dark, what else? His short story collections, Men Without Women, Shahrazad is awesome if you haven't read that short story. Those aside, he really does have something that he's trying to figure out. And when I started reading his work, I thought, oh my God, this person's like a very deep well of intuition, spirituality, and like being able to draw real truths about the world, or as Mr. fucking Jordan Peterson would say, hyper real, things about the world out by using the device of like illogical or non-logical or non-causal plot lines. So the idea is that like in like a David Lynch movie, for instance, the plot is not to be explained so that like in a dream, the logic is non-linear and that you can resonate and understand what happened better than using words. I think that's quite good. But the fact that he's done the same thing over and over again makes me think less of the fact that he's good at that and more so that he had a few ideas, he tried to trudge along, and at the end of it just sort of didn't know what to do with it. I understand that he plans things out, or actually he doesn't. He writes on the go, doesn't he? I understand that his motifs, the commonalities that he draws upon, like the different imagery, like wells, cats, hotels, all of those things really get to the depth of certain feelings. And I understand that there's certain religious or cultural backings to that. But really, it does sort of rob the books of its magic when you know that he's been writing the same thing over and over again. And I know that there are different points to some of them. Like in Dance, 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 there's a lot of points about consumerism and gentrification and greed. Wind Up Bird Chronicle, really cool plots about like the war, the connection between different generations of time, the idea of sitting in the stream of something. Like when life is going, you go with it. When life is still, you sit. Control, alienation, all great themes. But when you read other Japanese authors, you know, because alienation is one of their big themes, he's not the only one, and he's not the best one. He's not the best one. For instance, if you want to look to like someone who doesn't write the same book over and over again, who does the thing of like magic realism or surrealism, Kobo Abe. Kobo Abe is the one. People will read The Sand, The Woman in the Dunes, which is pretty cool. It's sort of like a Kafka-esque, and literally Kafka-esque story where the person comes to love their absurd circumstances more than their real life, and it's really cool. But then he's got things like The Boxman, and he's got things like The Arc Sakura, The Ruined Map, which are... See you later. Which are just like on another level, and sort of you can tell there's an intention behind it. The thing that I don't like with the Murakami books at this point, having read basically all of them now, is that I really do feel like sometimes he doesn't have an intention with his books, and he sort of gets to the end of a book, has plot points that he hasn't tied up yet, and goes, what do I do here? And then he goes, I know what I'll do. I'm Murakami. People know that I'm Murakami. I'm just going to leave it. Or I'm going to have the main character or one of the main characters disappear. And that's going to be the vibe of the thing. Sputnik Sweetheart. South of the border, west of the sun. The main character doesn't disappear for a long time. And you're thinking, oh, hell yeah. Oh my god, he's actually done it. There's going to be like an end plot point that resolves this arc. And is it Shimamoto? Yeah, Shimamoto. She's gonna. They're gonna leave. He's gonna leave his wife, and he's gonna pursue love, and he's actually gonna do something. And then as soon as he gets her, spoiler alert, she disappears. And the idea is that maybe she never existed. Maybe she only existed when they were a kid. And it's like the first time I read this, right? The first time I read a plot like that, was like, oh wow. Yeah, he just made her disappear, and now she's in the ether, or whatever. Wind Up Bird Chronicle sort of thing. But after you do it over and over again, when especially it doesn't really serve the main plot, and it's trudging along, I don't know. It ruins it breaks the fourth wall in a bad way for me. The other thing is, the intention and the precision with writing. I just uploaded a video about Nabokov. Everything that Nabokov writes has an intention. It's unreal. I feel respected as a reader. I feel like he sat down and gone, what am I trying to show, right? Murakami, sort of in the vein of authors that has images in his head, like sort of ideas, and then plots them out randomly and then tries to connect them based off like vibes and themes. I respect that. There's a big place for that. Hayao Miyazaki does that in his movies. Lynch does that in his movies. But, like, sometimes it's just an opportunity for him to flex. Like, it's just an opportunity for him to sit there and go, I'm really good at cooking. I know a lot about music. We're just going to vibe out for a second. We're going to talk about my personal beliefs. Like in Kafka and the Shore, when he goes on that random rant about, like, the trans person and, like, the women coming in trying to be feminists. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't like that. I don't like that when he just sort of derails the plot at the expense of, like, a rant or, like, his own opinions. Like, I understand that it's your book. I understand that you can do whatever the fuck you want. But I feel disrespected as a reader, sort of going, okay, but do I have to keep track of what you're telling me here? Like, does the nature of your simple meal have any relevance to the plot? Is it going to be, like, foreshadowed? Is it something? Because in, like, some of his books, like the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, right? And, like, Hard-Boiled Wonderland, Wild She Chase season, even. The rants and the anecdotes and the sort of side tangents, they really do thematically match the plot. Even like with Dance, Dance, Dance. Yeah, but in some of them, it just doesn't at all. It just does not at all. And I've got a few left. I got to read Killing Commentatore. I read his latest book. That felt like the greatest hits of Murakami, The City and Its Uncertain Walls. But like the same things happen. And like he'll just go on rants about how he likes certain things. I don't know, man. I think an author should be intentional, or at least try to make it like their random tangents that they went on. Go back, edit. Think about how you can fit it in. Because if you're at that level of creativity, which he is, you should be able to piece things together, right? You should be able to go back and go, oh, that kind of seems like this theme. That seems like a vehicle, I can do this. Don't get me wrong. I'm trash. I don't know what I'm doing. But, I don't know. That's my Murakami rant. My favorite Murakamis, After Dark, Wind Up Bird Chronicle, Kafka on the Shore, Dance, Dance, Dance is pretty much up there. And then some of his short stories are pretty cool. There's the one around a bonfire on a beach from After the Quake. That's really cool. Shahrazad, Kino. Kino's unreal. Sleep's pretty cool. But those are all pretty intentional. And the ambiguous endings have a purpose. I don't know what happened to Murakami. I cannot find any resources on what happened to him in his personal life around the plot lines of cheating, of love triangles, of underage predation, like in Norwegian Wood, But they pop up in his works, and the idea that like a woman's gone missing and now you're lost, I don't know where that comes from. If anyone in the comments watches this, why does he do that? It's not, something has to have happened in his life for that to be a theme. I'm sorry, but like it has to. Everything else he writes about, if you read his first two books, the Wind Rises, or Hear the Wind Sing, sorry, and Pinball, it's literally autobiographical snippets, which is unreal because he's going through some stuff. But he writes from experience. Where are these things coming from? And why hasn't he got it resolved at the age of like fucking almost 80? I don't get it. The girl disappears. Great, now what? Why? What does that serve? Get a job. I don't know. Yeah, but people like Kobo Abe, for instance, right? He's got things he wants to figure out. He just sends it. And they're ambiguous or they're open-ended endings, but it serves a function. Or it's not repetitive, at least. I don't know. I used to think Murakami was one of my favorite authors. Also, the way that it's so repetitive in the way he sets up a story, where like, it's said a lot that he's very misogynistic, and I understand that. But honestly, it just comes off as cringe. Like, it's not, I don't think he is sitting there going, I hate women. I think it's more so he just like goes, now I have to write a description of the woman. What do and then he just uses the same descriptions over and over again. I will sit there and I'll, before turning the page, go, it's going to be an average, not what you'd call conventionally attractive. Like, you get the point. Everyone's made this critique. But like, you're getting paid to write. You're worth millions. Surely you can plunge the depths of your references, of your symbolism, and I know it's there because you've done it very wildly. You wrote a whole book that is like a modern retelling of the Oedipus complex. And write something different. I don't get it. Like, pick one of your short stories and turn that into a book. I don't know. I feel disappointed. I feel like, and this is a common theme of living in the 21st century, the people that I idolize, or that I come to idolize or respect, end up disappointing me. And usually it's because they do some ditty stuff. But in this context, it's just that like the jig's up. Like, I've been reading Nabokov, and yes, he has the theme of basically exploring Machiavellian and weird narrators in an effort to trick the reader or make them empathize with funny stuff. Or just for the sake of fiction, like take an intrusive thought, turn into a plot story, great. But it's not repetitive. Like, he does have some common themes, but there's so much creativity and everything's intentional. Everything's intentional. Yes, Murakami, you can set up a really good vibe. You get the Cuddy Flam. Is Cuddy Flam the whiskey? Whatever it's called. Cuddy Stark. I'm thinking of One Piece. You get a hotel room. A girl comes through a wall. It's mysterious. It's a dream. You wake up and there's real repercussions of the dream. That's cool. For instance, Kafka on the Shore, people falling asleep on a hill, all the rest of it. That's Picnic at Hanging Rock. That's Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan Lindsay, Australian book. The more that I read, the more I realize Murakami, his ideas aren't his own. I'm not saying plagiarism, but it's like the things that he's done have been done. Which hurts. It hurts. But because you want there to be someone who's capable of writing the feeling of dreams and the feeling of the abstract. And you want people to bring down those ideas. And they exist. But I just don't know if it's Murakami anymore. I don't know if it's Murakami anymore. Like, even like Hard-Boiled Wonderland. Unreal. I feel like he got there from a process that wasn't the one that you'd think. For instance, he copied off of Dream Mentor by Roger Zelazny. I didn't copy, but it was inspired by. Thank you to Liminal Spaces on YouTube for putting us onto that. But there's so many people, so many authors that are actually locked into the abstract and the unreal and write about it in weird and surreal ways that don't repeat themselves. I don't get it. This is my Murakami rant. I like his writing. Also, his writing style, I understand that he took he wrote English and then translated it back to Japanese to make it simple and approachable. But sometimes it's just not good. And it's not that it's not literature and it's not like highbrow. It just sometimes isn't good. Sometimes he'll describe things and go through whole passages where there's no point. There is no point. And you're sitting there as a reader, knowing that he does this abstract and surreal things, right? So you're looking into the meaning of stuff, trying to figure it out. And you go, okay, here's a passage about a sunset. right? Sputnik Sweetheart, they're in Greece. Okay, this is going to probably hold some relevance. I'm going to pay a lot of attention. I'm going to read it. I'm going to reread it, making sure that I get the symbolism. And then it never comes up again. And it wasn't symbolism. He just wanted to write about the sunset to fill in some time. Pisses me the fuck off. I don't know. There's my Murakami rant. Mwah. I obviously still like his books because I've read 17 of them at this point, but it does my head in.